As soon as I was about to talk.
Great way to start the video. Yay.
Welcome to PricePlow.
What's going on, PricePlow Nation? CJ here, and I've got a couple of special guests with me. You guys might, at this point, have seen a few videos with these guys on it. It's a Thursday, middle of the week, but we've been filming all day pretty much. So just real quick, introduce yourself, guys. We'll start with you, Josh.
So Josh Schall, consumer product goods strategist, worked in the industry for the last almost about 10 years.
Bruce Kneller, general thorn in the side of the industry for about 25 years maybe.
Yeah,
no, I've been just, I guess, I don't know, an old hand that's been around the block for, about 2.5 decades.
I feel like both these guys are playing down their resumes a little bit, but two incredibly influential guys, and both of you guys have been around for some really important things. Especially you, Bruce. Obviously, you've been around forever.
Thank you. That's
Josh is a millennial like me, so I guess we're still kind of green, but I think we're slowly not getting so green, right? Like,
I think we're the biggest generation now. Is that what?
Yeah, you guys are. You really are.
Well, so today we're going through a ton of topics, and one thing that I wanted to get into, because this is very interesting. Like, Bruce, you're an old school guy, man. You're a legacy in yourself, man. So you know all about the legacy brands,
right?
Josh and I, we're seeing like a new landscape of the industry, both entrepreneurs, and like spent some time in this. Like, I want to hear from both of you guys. Like, how is the supplement industry landscape changing, marketing to the millennial generation or the next gen versus Gen X or the baby boomers, prior to that?
After you.
I think what I guess I see the biggest point of differentiation in terms of the generation is that, millennials in general, like, we want to be a bigger part of the brands that we support. Like, we want to know the story behind them. We want to know who's involved. Like, if we're spending $1, where's that dollar going? So people like CEOs or wherever, we want to know the backstories about a little bit of everything. And I guess the good and the bad about that is that you then become so involved with the brands that you want to support that you believe that your voice is just as strong as anybody else's, just as strong as the CEOs. And I think the biggest kind of difference is that a millennial really does ask or tells their opinion of anything. Could be flavor, could be products, could be whatever. And it could be conceived as a bad thing. I personally always think it's great, because it's anytime a fan or a customer or wants to engage with you, that's an opportunity for you then to basically give them what they want, which I think you had prior generations that never spoke up, so you really never knew like what they wanted, what could be better, all these different things where, you obviously have to like sift through it. There's definitely things that people are just, venting about their experiences or what they would like, but there's a lot of value in just like listening to your consumers and like really understanding like what they want out of this experience. It should be one of those things where you are giving them value. They're obviously asking of something of you, and that's that opportunity then to make them not only a fan but like a very big brand advocate, where they start kind of that snowball effect where they tell five friends, and all of a sudden your brand has kind of a life of its own, where before prior generations, like, there was less kind of opinion, right. So it's one of those things where you didn't really have that opportunity to really give that individualized kind of service.
Yeah, Gen X just did what they were told, right? And like now it's you've got to. So let me.
That's a bunch of zombies.
So obviously, I always look at it like Gen X is like that's the generation of hard work, right? The millennials is a very. I hate to say that it's not hard work. Well, I think there's a lot of association with lazy, but I think it's very different. But before I even get into my point of view here, I want to hear from Bruce, because obviously I'm kind of with you where I think it's a good thing with the everything changing the way it is, that more people have a voice. But I know that you might have a different take on it.
Well, obviously for me it's been a little frustrating because I'm not a millennial, and I growing up when I did. In the 80s, we were programmed to think, differently. Not better or worse, just differently. So the way that I'm going to approach this is, it doesn't matter whether I like millennials or what they stand for or I don't. If I want them as a customer, I need to make them happy.
Sure.
I have to give them a reason to try my product and to like it and to keep coming back. So a lot of the points that Josh made are right on. The buy into the brand, to feel like they're part of the team, that their voice matters, even if it really doesn't. You have to make them feel that they have to buy in on it.
So let me ask you this though. So you said like it doesn't, right? And I just play devil's advocate here. I think that the misconception is objectively it does, even though it doesn't feel right. It's like, well, the guy in his basement or the guy that doesn't have $1 million is influencing $1 million company, but he's still influencing. So
but not on a micro basis. So here's the thing, okay? If one guy, contacts you and wants, like we talked about before, some weirdo flavor of a pre-workout or a protein, I'm not saying you should ignore him. You should obviously answer him and address his concern and thank him for taking the time to contact you. But you're probably not going to make that whack-a-nut flavor, okay? But if 60 or 70 people contact you and say, your chocolate's too sweet, well, you really need to take that into consideration. Maybe your chocolate is too sweet. Maybe you need to, dial back on stevia or Ace K or whatever it is you're putting into it. So from a bigger, macroscopic standpoint, it's very important to engage with millennials as a group. Whereas maybe on an individual level, you still have to be aware of it and remember it because you want to keep track of data and plot trends. But it may not be as I guess important or congruent for long-term strategy for the business. Hey, you guys are here. Yeah. So people like me, we either deal with you or we go away.
So how do we adapt in this landscape? Josh, you might be able to answer that. I mean, obviously everybody wants, and look, I feel this. I mean, we're not like the biggest YouTube channel, but I get so many comments, so many direct messages on so many platforms that it's almost ridiculous for me as one person to be able to answer everybody's concerns or talk back to everybody. I do my best, but I'm curious. I mean, that's a valid point, right?
Yeah, I think there's obviously always a positive and a negative to anything. I mean, I'm extremely positive on the internet and everything that it kind of provides for brands. I think the biggest thing, kind of the thing we've all kind of touched on, is there's a feedback loop that was never there before, where you were always kind of guessing, and the only kind of metric you had was how many sales were out the door. And people might agree that's the only metric that matters, but it's one of these things where now you have the ability to see people's thoughts about your product. If it's an Amazon review, is it a message on social media, is it them posting about it, is it just in general like engagement that you're getting? I personally think it's amazing. Now, where I think you're touching on, CJ, is that like companies are not set up to kind of handle that. Especially legacy brands, like most of their kind of investment has been on salespeople.
Right.
It's not been on kind of customer service or customer kind of experience people.
Yeah, or influencers.
Yeah, or influence or whatever, where like, so you're getting a bunch of messages and trust me, it's like tenfold with even smaller brands, and they're not really set up for just the time suck that kind of gets in there where you're answering people individually, you're doing all these things. And we touched on it like kind of on an earlier basis, but there's tech solutions, there's whatever. But at the end of the day is like you have to understand that is a huge element of the game now.
Yeah.
People want to have that engagement. Engagement is like king. Like that is above all. That's how you're going to really get people to be like brand advocates. So you need to invest in the proper technology, the proper labor, like whatever you need to do to restructure people's jobs, like whatever it needs to be. Like if you're going to really play against, and try to get the millennial buyers, and not only millennial buyers, but Generation Z that's coming up next that are going to be even more wanting that individualization and wanting to like talk to you. Yeah. Like you're going to need to just like have a whole like paradigm shift in terms of like where you put your resources at. So it's no longer going to be so much about outside salespeople and all these different things. It's about like how much you can control your brand message on the internet, on social media, on Amazon, on whatever it is. Those are where you're going to get your most bang for your buck down, not so much of just having a bunch of people drive around and hit a couple brick and mortar stores.
So Bruce, I've always found this, maybe you disagree with me here, man, see if I can poke some fire out of you.
Uh-oh.
I've always felt like Gen X or some of my, my parents' generation, like were somewhat hypocritical with some of the things that they would say, because they would say things like, the millennial generation is lazy, right? Yet they're butthurt because they actually have to comment back to each person commenting on their YouTube channel.
That's a good point. The engagement thing you're talking about, you're right. There is some hypocrisy there. And it is kind of laughable. I mean, how do I criticize you if I'm doing the same thing that you're doing, right? I'm not credible anymore. But one of the things that I think is really important about engagement that kind of adds on to what Josh was saying is just how fast it is and the turnaround time that people demand for folks of my generation. You know, we're used to email. So if somebody got back to me in 48 hours, that was okay. Well, we're seeing people that they're unhappy if you don't get back to them within minutes.
Yeah.
Okay. And the other thing about it is people are really fast to criticize a brand negatively, and it has huge consequences. I mean, you know, one really negative review, like say on Amazon or whatever, it can really hurt a brand's sales for a long time. People will zoom in on that negative, that 2-star or that 1-star review on Amazon or somewhere else, and they'll focus on that, but they won't really focus on the 35 5-star reviews.
Now, what do you think leads? Because I'll give you, just kind of speak from PricePlow Nation watching this. Know, like, we command a group of people that are ride or die for what we do, right? We also have a lot of people that are haters out there. There's a lot of people that don't like us, but our positive relationships are so much stronger, and it's an emotional connection more than anything. And I find that even in the scenario that, let's say, we upset a big brand, like we could upset a really big brand. We have. I mean, we've gone toe-to-toe with Jim Stabani. That didn't really negatively affect us, though. And now, do you think it's because of the way that we use our strategy that's different than, like, big businesses don't really build on relationships as much as the grassroots?
But you're missing one point.
Sure.
And maybe it didn't negatively interfere or interact or hurt PricePlow, but that brouhaha with you and Stepani, did it hurt Stepani and his brand? It may have. I mean, that's what I'm saying. I mean, it's instantaneous, it's quick, and let's not forget, the internet tends to be permanent. Okay, so if you're a brand, especially a legacy brand, and you don't really quite understand how millennials think and work, you almost have to walk on eggshells and be extra super, almost saccharinely nice to these people, okay, and give them extra time, because there really is more than an existential risk that you could blow your brand up.
Well, how do you explain, like, Rich Piana as an example, where he literally built a brand on, like, saying outlandish stuff and almost pissing people off?
Well, I mean, he was true to his personal brand, and the people that were interested in 5% were interested in that lifestyle or his personal kind of brand. I think to your guys' point about kind of the negativity, me personally, like, when I'm talking to clients, like, I love negative comments, because that, again, like, it takes a certain type of person to comment negatively, and I'm talking more from a review standpoint, not so much like a trolling, not a trolling thing. Like, that's an opportunity for you to, like, speak to them, understand their problems, and really, like, turn that around. Like, they just want to be heard. Like, they had some bad experience for whatever reason, and they just want to be heard. So to me, I much love, like, those people more than the people that don't say anything, because I don't know. Like, I don't know who they are. I don't know what they want. I don't know what they need. It's very hard for me to, like, suggest things if there's really no customer data out there, and that at least provides that.
One thing about that, and you're totally right, is I just wish that some of these people that just, blow up a brand or a product and neg the shit out of them, contact the brand before you do that. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've turn on my laptop to see, a message that there's a negative thing about something that a brand did, and, they never tried to resolve it with the brand, or it wasn't the brand's fault, okay? If you want to, this is just general, if you don't like something a brand's doing, okay, contact them. If they don't get back to you, and if you want to leave a negative review, that's fine, or if their answer didn't satisfy you, that's fine, but before you want to blow them up, at least have the courtesy to contact them and try to see if you can work out a solution, have your questions answered.
Well, I guess at the end of the day, though, like, I mean, we got to face the obvious here too, is that there's a lot of things, like, I get people all the time that are starting a business, and I'll say, like, what are you doing on social media? And I'm like, well, I really don't do social media. And I'm like, well, then fuck off. And that's not me trying to be shitty. It's like, I actually don't always like social media to a lot of extent, but it's the world I live in. And so, same thing to what your point is like, yeah, it does kind of suck that they can immediately give you a Yelp review, or they can say something to 2 million followers without having to go to you first, or you have an opportunity to respond. but it is what it is, right? So really, like, how do we address the world that we live in versus like wishing it was different?
Like I mean, that's kind of the thing I always say. I say, the internet is not going to shut off tomorrow. It's not going to happen.
Right.
Like, so this is the world that you live in at this point. There's no point to be complaining about how it used to be, or even if you were at one point winning in social media and all of a sudden the algorithms change and you're pissed off and you're like, why am I not winning anymore? Like, you need to adapt. Like the key to any successful business person, doesn't matter. It's constant adaptation to, you know, the environment that's around you. So like the only way for you to like continuously improve is to adapt. So it's one of these things where, to me, like, you know, we're talking about millennials or whatever, like how do you market to them? I mean, the key, everybody's carrying around a computer in their hands at this point. Like, you need to be where the attention's at. Like people like the first world now is like your phone. Second world is here. So like, don't be upset that people will spend more time looking at a device than they will look at you as a person. The key is to how do you target those people? How, like, they're on this, how do you get people to pay attention to you? That's how you win. Like, if you want to continue to play the game like it's 1985 or 1999, it's no longer there anymore and it's not coming back. So it's like,
that's a good point. And you brought up, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but it's not coming back, guys. So all of you guys out there think, you know, it's, you know, next quarter, next year, you know, it's going to change, it's going to be different, it's going to be like it was in 1999 or even, we'll say, 2010. It's not. It's going to evolve and it's going to be something that's substantially different. And you need to be very mindful in your communications, both publicly and privately, with millennials, because, you know, one of the things that I'm doing now, and I've got a little sticky note on my computer, is, you know, before you hit send or enter, go read what you're writing and make sure that that's something you would be willing to say to yourself. Or say to somebody, you know, in real life.
Connected to my chest.
Well, I mean, really, like the dog collar that shocks me. But I mean, really, it's probably a good practice for everybody. Is what you're conveying to not just millennials but anybody. Is this something that you're willing to, you know, be made public for everybody to see permanently? Is this how you represent your brand? So just because we get a lot more traffic now from millennials than we did, say, you know, 5 years ago, you know, it's easier and quicker and faster. Sometimes, you know, the incoming message is negative and people's response might be to reply in a hostile manner. Stop right there.
Yeah.
Don't reply in a hostile. Walk away from your phone or your computer, calm down, and come back, you know, in an hour or two, and then address it. Just don't instantly hit the enter button.
This would be like, this is how I want to kind of wrap it up. This is my theory, and I don't know if get you guys' feedback. The difference between this new generation of consumer versus the prior one is that money is less valuable. Like, they don't prioritize money like the previous generation, that the relationship, the emotion is so much more important. Like, we talked about the fact that, you know, millennials, they have less money or they live in a basement or whatever, but there's also a huge group, and I can tell you, like, look at Ghost, all right? That's not the cheapest pre-workout. Sell the shit out of pre-workouts, they're cool. I think that the reality is, if you're cool, then you're emotionally grabbing that consumer, and that's what they want now. It's not that you're the cheapest or bought the most ads or whatever. It's the relationship.
Well, I mean, I guess from like kind of the first point that I was talking about in terms of like just brand storytelling, and like the internet provides that and everything, like to your point, like with Ghost or some of these other brands, like they really understand like what their brand is. They understand the lifestyle that brand is conveying, and they know how to target that specific people, which is not what legacy brands have had before. The difference in why I am always the biggest proponent of digital, internet, any of that kind of stuff, is it provides you the opportunity to understand like exactly who your customer is. You have demographic analytics, you have customer data, you have all these different things that previous kind of generations or legacy brands or whatever that worked with a GNC or a Vitamin Shop or a Walmart or a whatever channel they worked in, they really never had the opportunity to speak or know who their actual customer was. Walmart knows who their customer is. You know, GNC knows who their customer is because they own all the data, they own everything like that. Where brands now, they have the ability to kind of take that in-house and understand, okay, I'm building this lifestyle, and I have kind of like found that those are my buyers, and now I double down on that because I understand that's exactly, I found a niche, I found something. And to your point, like with Ghost, I mean, it's been something in the industry for I'd say last 5 or 7 years, and maybe Dan and those guys, like they've said, like the majority of people that buy products are not the bodybuilders. Like it's building lifestyle brands, it's building these brands that for the 99% that don't want to compete, but you build products, I guess, that would be appease the people that actually would want like efficacious types of products. So it's
so you got these brands doing that, but here's the big elephant in the room, because you're now in this weird generation. Like we just went out to Nutrex Research, huge legacy company, man, like amazing guys there. The feeling that I'm getting is, how do we reinvent ourselves in this new climate? They've already built a whole like infrastructure of something that now is less marketable than what it was.
Look at the good thing.
Can you reinvent yourself?
So it's not, all the things that millennials do are not negative. Some of them are really positive and better now than they've ever been in the history of dietary supplements and sports nutrition. And one of them is the sheer amount and quickness you're going to get data or feedback. Okay, that's awesome. If you know what to do with it, you could take that stuff and build the shit out of a brand. But if you don't value it and you don't understand how to mine it and look at it and react to it, you're dead. You're over. Right. So I think the biggest plus for the millennial generation is their willingness to share their opinions and what they want and what makes them happy. And
so do you think that a big company like Nutrex or Gaspari or like you name whatever big legacy out there can BSN? Like I see companies trying to do that. Who's one that did it? In my opinion, was VPX. They
reinvented themselves.
But they had to create a whole nother product. I mean, they're not even VPX anymore. They're Bang, right?
Jack was really smart with that. I'll give Jack a lot of props. He basically took a company that was teetering on the edge of not existing anymore and turned it around to be one of the most successful companies out there now with his Bang product. I mean, he saw what people want, mined the data, saw the writing on the wall, and adapted to the change. Now the question is, can every legacy brand do that? Absolutely not. Some of them will. And again, the smarter ones are the one that and I'm going to give you a little plug in, the ones that are going to seek out a guy like Josh to say, hey, listen, our sales are tanking, our margins are getting crushed. Help me. What information can you help me with? Here's my data. Help me utilize it in a creative way, in a way that lets me make money. And there's going to be ones where you've got an owner or a C-suite where the guys are arrogant and egotistical and they just think they can fix it themselves. But again, if you can mine the data that the millennials are providing, man, that's like gold. I don't even know how. It's better than anything. We never had that, man. We used to do, it was like almost like throwing darts in the dark. You just hope that you came up with something and people liked it. Now you can actually find out in a matter of hours what millions of people like. That's just amazing.
Yeah.
And I would say to your point, TJ, in terms of like, can a legacy brand adapt? It's been kind of a small like obsession of mine, is like understanding like legacy brands and how they can kind of like reinvigorate their brand. And I think a lot of it comes down to the way the business is capitalized. And I don't want to get too much in the weeds here, but it depends on, is that legacy brand still kind of like wholly owned by the people that kind of started it, or whatever, and there's a lot more opportunity for them to take chances and actually play more of the long game and like reinvent themselves? Or do they have private equity money and it's all about, we want to make our extra 5, 10, 15% for the next 7 years because then we want to exit? That's a different thing, because they're not willing to take those chances to reinvent themselves. It's a matter of like, how do I get scale? How do I eliminate costs? How do I do these things? Because I want to flip this in 7 years. Because all of my investors in this group want to make sure they get their return. Gotcha. And I think that's kind of where I believe, like, and I've talked to a lot of them, and honestly, like, I was a little bit, naive at the beginning, because I was like, I can change these legacy companies. I have these great ideas. These are ideas that can really change the game for them. And what I found was there was a stark difference between how it was taken based around how the business was capitalized.
You got a really good point. I think that if you're a legacy brand and you're not doing well, and you look for a big capital infusion from like a VC firm or a PE firm, you're just prolonging your death.
Right.
Okay, and the reason I say that is
We're seeing that with a couple of
a lot of them.
There were
A lot
some
of these
people that got absorbed recently. That
right.
probably, yeah.
So what happens is
Bought me another year.
You bring in maybe less than that, right?
Right.
You bring in the PE money. They want somebody from their company probably in as the CFO of your company now, and they don't have a good understanding of the industry. They just understand pluses and minuses on the balance sheet. And this is kind of a cottage industry, as big as it is, and it's a little bit unusual. And if they don't have a good feel for it, and they can't say, hey, listen, we kind of need to reinvent part or all of our brand. They just want to keep going down the same line and just try to milk as much money out as they can for their investors. Then that brand may really be doomed.
Well, I think what's interesting to me, and I know it's going a little long, so we'll make this the end. But so here at PricePlow, Mike, I said this to you guys off camera, but Mike's in his mid-30s, but he acts like he's well into the Gen X the way he acts. He's an old soul. Him and Robert, both old souls. Mm-hmm. So, but the cool thing that he does is I think that he recognizes that as he doesn't understand or doesn't even really necessarily want to understand that next generation of consumer, at least to the level I do. So he allows me the freedom to be able to, he doesn't know what a vlog is or didn't give a shit what a vlog, but it matters now, right? And yeah, so it doesn't matter, I think, we got the damn Mayo Blocks ILLA. What's this ILLA? Is that like YOLO? I don't know, but it's, but I think that if a company, like you said, is willing enough to let go of to be humble enough to say, we can't do this on our own. We need somebody that's a visionary within this generation, or at least understands this mindset today. Then they maybe have a fighting chance, I guess. But otherwise, it's how long until the end?
Yeah, like I said, I don't know if it's the end or if it's just a different iteration. And everybody has what's their purpose. I guess the purpose is try to get as much profitability extraction out of it. But at the end of the day, it's going to be very hard for those legacy brands to change and completely adjust their sales channels, their marketing initiatives, all those types of things. That's going to be a 2 to 3 year thing before you can even get it back to baseline. You're gonna have a lot of bad years. So it's just a matter of how long you see that process going through, how patient you are, how willing you're let that kind of go through the runway system. But at the end of the day, it's just one of these things that it's just completely different models at this point. Legacy brands, and then brands that are now starting out with millennials as their main focus, and their and they understood they started as a digital company.
Right.
You know what I mean? And then they kind of
more than likely in 15, 20 years from now, they'll be in the same boat where they're trying to figure out what they're going to do.
Yeah, I think because everything's going to kind of change, and it's who can kind of keep with it. But yeah, the way it is now is not going to be the way it is in 7 years or 10 years.
All right, guys. So that actually leads us to what I think is going to be the next point. Might probably just have Mike come in here for this one, but I want to get with you guys on physical brick and mortars versus e-commerce. I think that that's a big thing that we've been talking about a lot. So we will be back in another video. Make sure you subscribe to the PricePlow YouTube channel. We got a lot of conversation with these guys, a lot of good content coming out. We'll see you guys on the next one.
All right.
Welcome to PricePlow.